In this next section, we will be covering accessibility supports. This is the Accessibility Supports Training module for the Oregon Statewide Assessment System, required for all district and school test coordinators as well as test administrators. This training is designed to be an overview of Oregon statewide assessment accessibility supports, specifically the selection, administration, and evaluation of these supports. Selection of appropriate accessibility supports increases the equitable access to grade-level content assessments and supporting students in demonstrating what they know and can do. The Oregon Accessibility Manual was developed to guide the selection and administration of universal tools, designated supports, and accommodations for the current statewide assessments, which include mathematics, English language arts, science, social sciences, English language proficiency, the extended assessment, and the kindergarten assessment. Only those supports included in the OAM may be provided to students during the administration of Oregon statewide assessments. When selecting an accessibility support for testing, keep in mind they must mirror the supports currently being provided to a student in their classroom instruction and assessments. It is never appropriate to introduce a support to a student for the first time during statewide testing. It is critical to know the differences between each category of statewide assessment accessibility supports. Specifically, there are 3 categories of support: universal, designated, and accommodations. Each of the 3 tiers of support have different rules for implementation. Universal tools are automatically available to all students, while designated supports are available to any student based upon identified need. Accommodations are available to students who have that support documented in their IEP or 504 plan. Within each of these tiers, any specific support may be embedded, which means incorporated in the testing interface, such as text-to-speech, or they may be non-embedded or outside of the testing interface, such as scratch paper. For more details on each tier of support, consult Table 1.1 in the Oregon Accessibility Manual. Any support that is not listed in the OAM is considered a modification. Assessments taken under any modified condition are counted as non-participants in all federal and state accountability measures and reports. OD highly recommends using the practice test to familiarize test administrators and students to tests and accessibility supports in order to assist the selection of supports for a student. In order to enable any available embedded support in a practice test, a proctored practice test will need to be set up. There are multiple options for documenting accessibility supports depending on the student and their specific needs. School teams making educational decisions for students in either general or special education or who are English language learners are strongly encouraged to document any discussions regarding accessibility supports in the student's cumulative file. Types of information that teams can use to make informed decisions about testing supports include classroom performance data, review of previous performance on state assessments, review of supports available in the classroom and their effectiveness, and even interviews with the students. Appendix C of the OAM contains multiple teacher tools that support a 5-step process to select supports described in more detail in the OAM. A brief description of each tool is provided in this training, but more information, please consult the manual. Tool 1 provides questions and aid in identifying various types of accessibility supports for students, becoming familiar with all of the supports that are listed in the Oregon Accessibility Manual. Tool 2 are questions that will guide discussions about selecting these supports during instruction and assessment during a team meeting. Tool 3 is a questionnaire which collects information about needed accessibility supports from the student's perspective. Tool number 4 is a planning aid for ensuring supports are implemented during testing. Tool number 5 is an example form that a student could carry on the test day into the testing environment. Perhaps you have students that are going to be switching classes and having multiple test administrators. They could have their accessibility supports documented on a paper that can be brought to each test administrator. Test administrators can more effectively implement the statewide assessment accessibility supports if they have a clear understanding of the purpose of each support. In addition, consistent implementation of supports across schools and districts ensure reliable and valid administration of the statewide assessments. All support practices and procedures used for students during instruction must be selected on the basis of the individual student's needs. For accessibility supports to be used during the administration of an Oregon statewide assessment, the support must be previously approved by the accessibility panel, listed in the appropriate test-specific accessibility supports table in the OAM, and implemented during instruction, and finally, familiar to the student prior to testing. In addition to the selection tools, Appendix C of the OAM contains tool number 6, which is designed to support the planning and implementation of assessment accessibility supports for an individual student or for a school or district system. Topics include this planning tool are implementing accessibility supports throughout the academic year, preparing for testing, effective provision of supports on the day of test, and considerations after testing. Evaluating the use of accessibility supports ensures meaningful participation of all students who use supports during statewide assessments. There are multiple reasons to evaluate supports that benefit individual students to the school or district system. Collecting and analyzing data on the use and effectiveness of supports ensures the meaningful participation of students with disabilities in state and in district-wide assessments. Data on the use and impact of supports during assessments may reveal patterns of use, as well as support the continued use of some supports, or even rethinking the use of others. An evaluation may also indicate areas in which the IEP team, Section 504 Plan Committee, or TAs need additional training and support. In order to identify systemic patterns, districts may decide to gather information on the implementation of supports during assessments from all schools. Finally, observations conducted during the test administration, such as interviews with test administrators or students after testing sessions, may yield information that can be used to guide future evaluation processes. The final teacher tool provided in Appendix C of the OAM is Teacher Tool number 7, which is designed to guide the evaluation of accessibility supports. This tool provides questions to guide discussions about selecting accessibility supports for future assessments. Finally, the links to the resources listed on previous slides are provided here and will be provided on the PPS assessment webpage.